do something a little bit on a different day. I was very excited about some stuff that happened over the weekend at Superbooth. So I wanted to come on and chat a little bit about that, talk about some specific stuff with one of the specific modules that I had that was particularly fun at Superbooth. Sorry, NobCon. I'm saying Superbooth. NobCon. Wish at Superbooth. So I wanted to come on. Wish I was back in Berlin for Superbooth, but no. No, so NobCon in Chicago, which was a crazy amount of fun. It was great to see everybody. It was a lot of fun to be there with all my fellow synth nerds, synth YouTubers, the manufacturers, all of that stuff. Got to play a couple of sets, which was really fun. I did a really fun workshop, which was, it was basically like a condensed version of the course that I'm teaching. So it kind of gave everybody a little bit of a taste for that, which was a lot of fun as well. Yeah, saw a bunch of cool gear. If there's any questions about any of this stuff, about NobCon shows, prep for the shows, gear that I saw, new stuff that came out, or whatever, definitely pop that into the chat. I'm happy to chat about anything. I do want to talk a little bit about specific piece of gear today, and that's the Shakmat Archer's rig, only because I found myself, for those of you who've been kind of watching along, you'll know that when I do my shows, they're improvised. And so I'm often experimenting with new stuff in the moment while I'm playing stuff. And some of that experimentation with the Archer's rig in my set on Saturday night at Superbooth really opened up my eyes to some of the crazy cool stuff that this module does. And I hadn't even been planning on talking about it. I mean, I was using it as hi-hats, which it does really well. Like, you want to hear, this is it as a hi-hat module. You've got decay. So you can do, so yeah, hi-hats. It does hi-hats really well. Sounds great. It can do 808 style, 909 style. It can do all kinds of hi-hats. But I was using it as a little bit more percussive rather than hi-hats, because I tend to use my hi-hats from the Digitact samples, because I don't need all the variety. I don't need to basically use a whole module. I had put this in because I tried it out at Superbooth. I asked the folks at Shakmat if they would let me take a look at one and try it out and use it, because it seemed, I mean, it's great for hi-hats. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll move some hi-hats into my case, and that way, if I wanted to, I can play just a live set with just my case. So they were kind enough to send this over to me, and then I started using it, and I was like, well, once you dig into it and you see all the different sound engines that it has, you very quickly go, well, why would I use this for hi-hats? Like, it almost seems like a waste, because it does so many other things that, yeah, I quickly started moving on to using it as more percussion. And then what I found myself doing in the middle of my live set on Saturday night was using it even more as kind of this tonal / atonal melody-ish tonal percussion, which is something that I often try to do with the BIA and dial things in. I do it quite often actually with the BIA, but to be able to do it with this in a way that was so easy was really kind of shocking to me. And it got me so excited while I was playing. I was just like, man, that's all I want to do. And I just kept messing with it, doing new things, writing new parts, and doing all of that stuff with it. So yeah, so I want to go over that today, because I'll show you a bit about what it does and how it does it, and why it kind of caught me off guard, and it really pulled me into a really fun, really cool space while I was performing. So I got really excited about it and wanted to chat about it. Also, Today is the day that the September cohort, the third cohort of my course, my online course, went live. So we had our first call this morning. It was great. People from all over the world, which is amazing, and it's always great to have people in there. And I wanted to just put this out there as well. This is kind of the last chance that everybody has to sign up for this cohort. And this is going to be the last one for a couple months because I'm touring next month and I won't have a ton of time on a regular basis to do all of the calls and the one-on-ones and the group calls that this requires. And so I wanted to make sure I let everybody know one last time that this is the last chance to sign up until winter, basically. So if you're interested in learning how to do what I'm doing here, improving your skills with your gear, it's really kind of a systematic way to learn how to and get comfortable with improvised live performance, and being able to incorporate that in whatever style you play, whether it's for playing for fun for yourself, just kind of jamming on your gear, or whether it's you want to play your first show, or maybe you're already playing shows and you want to get better, or you want to incorporate more live stuff in that. It's a great opportunity to do that. So if you want to sign up, there's a link in the description of the video. You can just go to circolive.com/courses. And if you use NobCon as the code at checkout, it'll save you $100, which is a huge amount off this. So happy to welcome everybody in, and there's still a few spaces available for this course. So I'd love to get you in on this one if you're interested. So anyway, please pop into the chat, post up any questions that you have and about any of the stuff we've been talking about, whether it's gear, shows, the course, whatever you want. Happy to answer whatever. And also this fun game that I like to play on the live streams here is post in where you're tuning in from, because it's exciting. Just this morning on the call for the course, there was somebody from Berlin. There was who was actually in Greece right now. There was somebody from London, somebody from South Dakota here in the U.S. So kind of all over the place. So it's always fun to kind of see where everybody's from. So definitely pop in and let me know what's going on. So let's see here. Proto Buffer, Jeffrey, welcome. There we go. All right, hey guys. James, welcome back. Rolf, good to see you. Rolf from right up the road here in Colorado. Let's see. Most of my work has been with Cubase 13 as my DAW choice, but I'm seriously considering a Push 3 for jamming and controlling Bitwig and Ableton. Push 3 for if you're going to do Ableton, great. Bitwig, it's kind of overkill. You're spending a lot of money for a Bitwig controller. It'll work. It can do it, but in my opinion, that would be a waste of money. But if you're going to go to Ableton, then yeah, it's amazing. I've got one right there. Can you see it? Yes, right there. It's hard to point in the camera backwards. Yeah, it's great. I love it. But it definitely shines when you're using it with Ableton or standalone. If you get the standalone version, that's pretty cool as well. I have a Deluge, but the Push 3 seems to be a perfect integration of software and hardware. Yes, if you're using Ableton. If you're not using Ableton, if you're just going to use Bitwig, I wouldn't get a Push 3. You probably want to go with like an APC or a Fader Fox or something that has programmable knobs and buttons that you can use. Yeah, I mean, that's where it will really shine. Using it with Bitwig, there's some integrations that you can use to use it with Bitwig, and that's cool and all, but it's just kind of overkill. I mean, it's like kind of getting a Ferrari to drive to the end of your block to get the mail kind of thing. Like, you don't necessarily need that, and it won't do things any better than something 1/10 the price would do if you're not using Ableton. If you're using Ableton, 100%, it is the integration is absolutely flawless. I love it, and it's amazing. So I think it really kind of depends on how you're going to use it. So let's see. Crispy turning in from Berlin, outstanding. Rolf from Denver, yes, right up the road. Tulsa, Oklahoma, yes, yes. Durham, North Carolina. Where else? Ingolstadt, Germany, nice. Ever tried it with Driven by Moss on Bitwig? I have not. I've heard of that and I've seen it, but I've never tried it. And again, yes, it will work. I'm not saying it won't work. I'm just saying that it's kind of overkill. You wouldn't get the any more features out of it than you would get out of something else, except maybe the MPE, if that's really important to you. If you're playing a lot of things live and you want the MPE expression, cool. But then maybe just use a cheaper controller and maybe an MPE keyboard. Might work out well for you. Let's see, Matthew, playing a hardware-only event in the Triangle Friday. Thanks a lot for the performance tips and tricks. Has been super helpful. Awesome, that's great. I'm very, very happy to hear that. I've installed Archer's Rig, but haven't had the time to try it out yet. Well, you came to the right live stream, because that's the plan. You notice I even have my little Archer's Rig manual here, just to go through stuff, because it's still pretty new to me as well. And I want to be able to kind of show a little bit about what we're doing with it. Here, I'm going to turn this a little bit. So there, because I'm scooching over a little bit. All right. Yeah, so let's really quick, oh wait, one more question here. Would it be worth it to switch to Ableton? What I'm looking for is a Groovebox to jam on that also has software on the back end. Yeah, it's, again, it all depends. Like, Groovebox is a super vague term anymore because there's so many different things that can be a Groovebox. For me, a Groovebox is something that's really immediate, really hands-on. And even an Ableton Push, just because it's a standalone device doesn't, in my mind personally, make it a Groovebox, because it only has 8 knobs and a keyboard with 20,000 functions that it can do, because it's Ableton. So in order to do that, there's a lot of going through menus, there's a lot of getting into stuff. Now, as a Groovebox, for me, that becomes way less immediate. For me, a Groovebox is, a Digitact, or it's an MPC, or it's something that is hands-on, easy to use, very immediate for jamming, for grooving on. Where Push 3 is first and foremost a production tool. So it goes very, very deep. And it's not the kind of thing you just jam on. Once you set things up in that kind of very deep system, if you set it up in a certain way, you can jam on it at that point. But it's not something that you'll just pick it up and go, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like rip out a beat, which you can do if you're using what I would consider more Groovebox. A Novation Circuit, the Electron, model series, or any of the Digiboxes, or an OP1 if you gel with that workflow. Those are things that you kind of grab and you create and you jam on, you groove on, right? So it's a Groovebox. Where the Push is kind of a series production instrument that can be used to comfortably bring productions into a performance world. So there's actually a great video that's on the Sonic State YouTube channel where they interviewed an artist from Scotland who uses modular and a Push 3. And he basically creates everything in his studio, in the computer, using the Push 3, using the modular. He's sequencing the modular via the Push 3 and all this stuff. So he's creating entire tracks. And then when he's done, he takes all that work that he's been doing in Ableton, because it's much easier to do it on a bigger screen with more controls. Like, you can't create racks, for example, within the Push 3, but you can in Ableton. So setting everything else is much easier in the software. Then being able to take that whole creation you made and load it into the Push, so that you can take it on the road. So you can recreate a pre-produced track while using some improvisational elements. That's where it's really, really good. As a jammable, groovable Groovebox, I would hate to see you spend a ton of money on something and then be like, oh my God, this thing is just like not doing it what I wanted it to do. So I would say, if you get it, go in with your eyes open. And I love mine, but I'm not using it in the way that it sounds like you want to use it. And so I would just be cautious that I'm not certain that it will act the way you want it to act. You know, if you are, if you're looking in the Groovebox world, look in the Groovebox world. I would say the Push 3 is not necessarily a Groovebox. I guess that's the long story short here. Let's see here. And on the question, would it be worth it to switch to Ableton? Well, if you're going to get a push, yes, 100%. Otherwise, if you're just looking for a DAW, Bitwig's great, and Logic is great, and Cubase is great, and Reason is great, and they're all great. It just depends on what you're used to. The thing with a DAW is you want it to stay out of your way. You want it to be a tool you use to get the creativity that's in you into a format that you can use. And if the DAW or the piece of gear becomes something that comes between you and your creativity and that kind of end result, then it's not great. So if you're good at a particular DAW, stick with that DAW. If that's the thing. Like they can all do the things. You know, it's just it's mostly workflow. You know, yeah, there's some differences, but it's mostly workflow. And so it comes down to, if the workflow allows you to be really creative, then that's the best DAW for you. Okay. Let's see. Hello from the UK. Hello, unknown artist. Good to have you back. Let's see. Do you reckon the Axis virus paired with the Digitakt 1 would be good for improv techno? Maybe with a lot of MIDI controllers for the multi-timbrality. Yeah, I mean, the virus is great. It's another one of those things that it does a lot, and it has a lot of control. So I like where you're going with the MIDI controller thing. In order to kind of take advantage of everything that it does, because it has limited input and output, or limited input points, so extending those out through MIDI controller I think would be great. But the sound is phenomenal. And to have a Digitakt 1 to handle drums, I mean, Digitakt 1, I like it so much that when I got my Digitakt 2, I kept my 1 because it's just such a good machine. If you want mono one-shot samples, if you don't need stereo, if you don't need time stretching, if you don't need that kind of stuff, if you don't need 16 tracks, the 1 is, at the price they're available at right now, it's just an unbelievably good deal. So yeah, I love those. Let's see, Rolf, is this the rig you were running at KnobCon? Yes, absolutely. I unpacked it out of my bags, which are right over there on the couch, and I just put it all back here and set it up. So this is exactly, the only difference is I had this up on a stand, and here I have it flat so that it all fits into the camera. If I move it up to where the stand is, it takes up the whole screen, so I can't zoom the camera out far enough. So yeah, this was exactly the setup that I was running at KnobCon. If anyone has an Oxycoral and wants some non-per-function better control over it, pair it with the TubuTech 2HP MIDI host and a Launch Control XL. Yep, absolutely. Launch Control XL for me, that is the utility of all utilities. Like, it is, for its price, it is so good that you can just kind of integrate it with whatever you want. Yeah, for me, it's kind of the perfect balance of size, functionality, and cost, and like product strength. You know, it's a great one. I use mine all the time. See, because my unusual production workflow is to have my friend Spencer on Zoom using audio movers to inject root audio into Zoom, and I give control to him for us to refine our ideas together. Got it. Okay, so you want something that can get in and out of software easily. Again, I would say the Push 3 is a little bit probably overkill for your use. You just need something, if you want hands-on, you want something to control your DAW, whether that's Bitwig or Ableton or whatever the DAW ends up being. So there's plenty of those. There's keyboard controllers that do that. There's a lot of control. The Launch Control XL has a built-in thing for controlling different DAWs, a built-in kind of preset. So there's all kinds of things that you can use and then just map different stuff. So yeah, I think that it's not that it would be a bad choice. I just think that it might be an expensive one for what you want to do. You wouldn't necessarily need something that extensive to do what it sounds like you're trying to do. But if you want to, awesome. I mean, I'm not saying not to get it because it's great. I love mine. Let's see here. The host lets you sequence with the Oxy one and then merge with the launch control to handle all 8 voices, volumes, and parameters. Yeah, it's cool. Wait, let me go back here. Oh yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, no, that's great. Having all of that control over the one is great. Or over the choral is great. One of my things with the choral that has been a challenge for me using it is just that you've kind of got all of the controls on the surface for whatever voice you're in, but then in order to get to those controls for other voices, you have to switch and go to them, and remembering where you are, what type of voice, so it gets a little convoluted. So my solution for that was to put the same engine on all 8 voices and use it as an 8 monosynths. So that way the knobs were always the same thing, and then I got really quick at switching between them. But I totally agree with you. Like, to be able to have like filter control and level control over every channel, even if you're not on it, the Launch Control XL is a very, very good option. Detect One supports loop cloud. Yes, it does, which is fun. If you're like jamming along, you can pop up a loop cloud and it'll keep it in time with whatever you're doing on your machine before you buy it. So while you're testing things out, it's pretty cool. Sorry. I'm still super hoarse and coughing from all of the talking at KnobCon. It was basically 3 straight days of walking and talking. So, yeah, I'm still recovering from that. That's why my voice sounds like, I'm going to have the super deep voice. I'm going to sound like Venus Theory on here for today, who I got to see at KnobCon. It was great to hang out with him again. So anyway, Archer's rig, let's talk about this for a second, because, you know, just to, again, kind of put this into context, this is the Archer's rig kind of, this is what it says on the tin, right? It's a hi-hat module, and it was basically made to be a hi-hat module. So that's cool. It does that really well. You've got, you know, you can change your filter. You've got effects that you can add to it. You've got a decay. Right? You've got a closed hat, open hat input. So if you look here, these 2 tracks right here on the top 2 that are active are the 2 channels on here. So closed hat is doing that. Open hat is doing. So I can actually move this to. Or it can do. Right, so there's all different, you know, it does the hi-hat thing. That's what it's supposed to do, right? So where it gets interesting is, let's just use just the open hat for a sec, because the way this is set up is the controls control the open hat by default. You have to press down on this button, and then you can control the closed hat. So again, looking for the immediacy thing, as I am always trying to do while I'm playing live and kind of improvising stuff, I like to have things right on the surface so I don't have to dig into them. So we'll just use the open hat here. Let's just kind of just randomly pop in some sort of a pattern. I don't know what this is going to sound like. And then we'll start to do some open hat stuff. So this is, right, kind of standard open hat stuff, but you can pretty quickly get away from that by just tuning it down and then taking the filter down. So you can get different sorts of percussion. Now, this also has volt per octave input, so you can change up notes. So it's easy enough to go in here and already it starts to sound like something a little bit more interesting, still a little bit close to a hat, and that's partly because of the engine that it's on. So this is when it has the little 9 in the screen, which I don't know if you can see that, probably it's behind this button. That's the 909 hat engine. But when you start to scroll through the engines and listening to what it does, This is an FM engine. So you can start to hear the tones a bit more. Now, being able to take that then, and I was putting it through a little bit of reverb. And then start to add in some of the effects. So all of a sudden you start to get into that tonal percussion range. And that's really where, you know, it kind of hits a sweet spot for me, because I don't like my stuff to be too melodic, but at the same time, I don't want it to just be drums and percussion. So to be able to kind of walk that line, I tend to use the BIA a lot to do that same kind of thing where it's pitch-ish, but it's not like strictly sticking to a scale because it's a little bit distorted. And you've got percussive elements to the sound design as well. So all of a sudden, it gives you these ways to create, you know, melodies that aren't really melodic. And that's really what I'm looking for the style of music that I like to make. So this has really hit a crazy sweet spot for me. So now this is one engine, right? This is the FM engine, as I was saying, and one type of effect. So you've got 8 different effects. No, sorry. Yeah, 8 different effects. You've got 8 different sound engines. So you can kind of have a huge amount of variety with this. So I'll just scroll really quickly through the sound engines just so you can see what the exact same settings sound like on different engines. So this is FM, and I'm gonna open this up so I know what they're all called because I do tend to forget. Here we go. So this is cross FM. This is a resonant noise. So it's taking a noise oscillator and it's just picking out resonant peaks. And you hear how that moves around? It sounds almost like a high-pitched xylophone. And again, you can always shorten the decay back down. Take out the reverb. And so this can still be percussive stuff if you want. But when you start to open it up, I think it gets a lot more interesting. So this one is a bell tone. So I'll take the effects out totally. So you can hear with the bell tone, it gets much more tonal, right? Now, this is a pure sine wave. So with this, you have a ton of flexibility to mess with stuff. I'm actually gonna pitch this down just a little bit because and then start to introduce effects. And back to kind of the pure sine wave. So again, a crazy amount of flexibility just from one module. So then, this one is called metal, and this is kind of classic metallic noise. But again, you bring this up and you can see why this is kind of set as a hi-hat sound, right? So it becomes that. But again, bring the filter down and open the decay. Now where it gets really interesting is I've got on Ascend, I have the Endorphins Ghost, which is if you're not familiar with it, it's basically an effects chain in a box. It's got distortion, reverb, filter, overdrive, all that stuff. So if I just bring in a little bit of that being sent through the Ghost, and then start to sweep the filter to pick out different resonances. And then where it gets really interesting too is if you start to bring in a kick with that. I don't know if that was distorting for you all, but it was distorting for me here. Let's see here. Yeah. So anyway, that gives you a crazy amount of output potential with this. So again, that's just kind of scrolling through some of the sounds that it makes. Actually, we can go through. Take that back out. That's where that was coming from. Going back to the hi-hat again. So we have the metal noise. We can go to the next one, which is the 808. All right, and this gives you, let's see, boost this up just a little. There we go. Using this on the 808 again, it gives you short decay, filtered up, take the effects out, and you can even pitch it up. So it gives you obviously a hi-hats, but then filter down, decay open. So you get a lot of variety there as well. This one is an XOR processor, so it's 6 square waves. So you can get this one to get a nice kind of buzz to it as well. Then this is a 4 square wave generator. So that's just the Archer's rig through the Ghost. So again, right now this is kick, the Archer's rig, and the Archer's rig is going through the Ghost, and a little reverb here as well. So again, tons of flexibility. So now if we pull this back out and we start to go back through those sounds, because we're back to, oh, we didn't do the noise, sorry. This is a noise generator. And this is a granular with noise as well. So this is really good for shakers. So again, a lot of flexibility. And then we're back on the 909. Oh no, sorry, this is the another drum machine one based on an EPRM. So again, lots of flexibility. Now, you heard me messing around with the effects a little bit. I'm gonna go back over here so I can see what all of those are. Because if we go over to the effects part, this effect that's here right now is the metalizer. So it's putting everything through that kind of metallic sound. me actually go back and let's go to, let's use the bell one just because it gives a good tonal quality. So this is going through that metalizer. So it basically FMs. And according to what it says here, it disrupts the audio buffer. So it gives you a cool metallic sound. The next one is an LFO that's on the amplitude. So it gives you an amplitude LFO that's acting like an envelope here. And again, turning that all the way up and making it the LFO go faster can make it sound again more distorted, almost like a bit crusher, but it's not. It's just an LFO on the amplitude. You bring it down and it sounds like an amplitude envelope. And that's without anything. Next up, this is an LFO on tune. So again, to get some more metallic sounds, this is just making the tuning amount move around a lot. So it gives you that, and it's kind of like adding to, it's kind of audio rate LFO, so it gives you a different thing. This is another filter envelope, but this is an up filter. Then you have a down filter envelope. Again, giving you a ton of options with what that can do. This is a standard sample rate reduction. So it just deteriorates the quality of the sample, so it makes it more like a lo-fi sample. The dig attack, sorry, the dig attack in the effects also has a sample rate reduction, which is very much the same as what this one does. The F is FM. And it's not through 0 FM, so it actually will change the pitch as you modulate the frequency. Again, if you're looking for some cool kind of tonal, metallic, industrial-ish sounds, you know, again, we can go back into this is a ring modulator. Again, ring modulation, kind of standard. This one is a comb filter. In use with the other filter. So a lot you can do with that one as well. And then we're back to the metalizer. So now you've seen there's 9 effects. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 different, 14 different voices. Available in this. So you can mix and match 14 noise sources and 9 effects. to come up with this crazy variety of sounds, and they all kind of stay within that family that we're talking about, like that the family of of like tonal percussion, and trying to keep in that same idea that it is a percussive sound that's not really melodic, but that has tone. So it keeps it from getting into like, you can write melodies where it won't sound like you're playing progressive. It can sound like industrial, it can sound like hypnotic, it can sound like all these kind of more kind of darker sounding bits of techno, but while still having the interest of having a sort of melodic element included in. So anyway, that just gives you an idea of kind of going through it. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to bounce back to the chat a little bit and happy to show you if there's anything else that is out there. So let's see here. Single module for just hi-hats. Yeah, well, yeah, modular people are crazy. Yeah, in software, it's one of the things that's great about modular is that it does allow you to kind of pick and choose, where in software, often, no matter what the software is, you can not make a lot of music because you spend all your time changing up your sounds, because you have just kind of this infinite palette of sounds. And what's cool, I think personally for me, what's cool with hardware and modular is being able to narrow down what you're doing to a palette of sounds that you really like. Now, again, this is a module that's supposed to be a hi-hat module, but as you just heard, hi-hats are like 2% of what it does. And so for me, why waste all those amazing sounds on hi-hats? And I need hi-hats in every track. So I just went back to using hi-hats over here. So I've got samples over here. So I've got closed hats, open hats, and ride all over here, because I like the standard kind of 909 sounds, so I didn't need to move off of that. Now, if I ever needed a hat, let's say I left my power cord at home for my dig attack and I went to a gig, well, yes, I can totally make the Archer's rig into a hi-hat. To be honest with you, I probably wouldn't. I would probably go with the BIA, only because it's just as easy to make that into a hi-hat. And the Archer's rig has all this flexibility that you can dial in crazy fast. And performing improvised live, like having that really fast access to parameters that you want to change is very, 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 very important. So yeah, single module for hi-hats. Yes, the battering ram is the kick. And so the way I'm going to switch microphones really quick, because this one is not charging correctly. Pop this in here. How's that? Better? Yeah? There we go. I think we've got some decent sound there. Okay, back to the microphone again. So, let's see, where was I? I don't remember. It totally just went off the rails. Let me go back to here. Oh, battering ram. Yes. So the way I have the kick going, bottom row here is kick sample, 4 on the floor. So if I bring the kick up, that's this module right here. Just to give you a little of what that sounds like by itself. Again, it's also from Shakmat, and it has very similar layout. So you've got what you want on the surface. You've got drive. You've got decay. You have click, which adds your transient to the beginning of. Check, check. All right. Well, not exactly sure why this is cutting out. Something I'll deal with later. So basically, kick here. The click is the transient at the beginning of the kick. So you can make it really soft. You can make it really super punchy. And then you've got a tune as well. So it's nice. And the drive goes to here on this circuit. And then there's a second drive circuit. So you can make that as harsh or as mellow as you want it to be. If you wanted to go like full 808 territory. Right, so you've got a lot of flexibility. So then what I've done with that is I have put it into, I sampled it into the Digitact, so I also have a kick that I can use as a rumble, and it's that same kick, so they kind of will go together no matter what I do with it. And then there's another rumble that's coming from here, which is a tom. And that's just a tom sound filtered way down, so I can keep my kick and rumble separate. So kick that you're hearing is main kick coming from the battering ram and rumble coming from the Digitact. So I can kind of maintain control over those two things. Tune fluctuation in the open house is really nice. Yeah, it is super fun to play around with. Let's see here. Would there be any way to break out the outputs of each module to XLRs? I mean, that would take another module. So you'd have to go the output into something that was a Eurorack to XLR output module, and it would be very difficult to do. You can output your mains from your mixer out to that, but it would be hard to do it individually by module. The only way to really do that would be with like an ES9 or something like that. There's a new one from BoardBrain as well that is, I can't remember the name of it, but it is. It also converts to outputs to ADAT. So it depends. You can definitely convert the outputs if you choose to. Sounds almost like a format filter. Yeah, there's some in there that definitely sound like that. You're still running the kick outside of Digitact 2. Yeah, I just went through that. In the modular rig instead of what? I missed your first question, Ralph. Oh yeah, still running kick outside of Digitact 2. Yes, so kick is in the modular, rumble is in here if I choose to use a rumble, so that way I have control over it and I don't need some crazy long effects chain. Yes, the kick is the battering ram. Hi-hat module is underselling what it can do. Totally, I agree with you. And I mean, they sell it as a hi-hat module. And when I got it, I thought I was going to use it as a hi-hat module. I was like, oh, cool, a hi-hat module. I have control over decay. I can filter. I can make hi-hats if I want to change things up. And then I started experimenting with it, and I was like, damn, this thing does way more and cooler, better things than hi-hats. So, yeah. I totally agree that is underselling what it can do. Yes, you've barely touched the effects. See, James, you got to explore your gear. We talked about that in the course. James is one of the people who has taken my course. And yeah, that's why we talked about experiment, man. Play around with your gear. Find the limits. And then go, okay, this does all these things. Now, what else should I do? So, yes, yes, yes. I remember an Alex Ball track that said, my FM sounds are truly through zero. Yes. I don't know about that song, but yes. The Digitech skin. Oh yeah. This is the guys at SynthSkins brought this to KnobCon for me. My Circo skin. And what it is it's basically a magnetic overlay. You can see here, it's a magnetic overlay for the Digitact, and it just fits on over the top of what's here, and it stays on by magnet, and they can custom make any of that stuff for you. So yeah. Yeah, check them out, SynthSkins, as it says right here, S-K-I-N-Z. But yeah, those guys were super cool. We hung out a bunch at KnobCon as well. And they were kind enough to bring that to KnobCon, knowing they were going to see me there, which was super, super nice. Let's see here. I have Electrons, Analog 4, Rhythm, Syntac, Digitac. but I've always used them via Overbridge. Yeah, I mean, Overbridge is great if you're using a computer. And it's one of the great things about Electron machines is that you can use them with or without the computer. The Overbridge is an amazing thing to be able to multi-track things into computer. If you're using your computer for mixing, for production, all that stuff, it's great. But you don't have to. You can just use the boxes by themselves if you choose. Are the Oxy One outline lit buttons the All right. Hello. We're going to do this podcast style. Sorry for the microphone in the way. All right. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay with this. This should help. Ooh, that's loud. This should help solve some of our problems here. Yes. So let's see. Where was that last question? Are the outline lit buttons the first gen Kickstarter version? They are not. This one came out last year at around Superbooth time, so it's been out for about a year and a half. And was the second model that came out. The first one was the kind of bluish gray one with white buttons. Then this one came out after that. So no, these are not Kickstarter buttons. These are the newest new. Let's see. James would love a Circo deep dive into techno genres history. Can I tell you, if you haven't watched it, go watch Jeremy Blake, Red Green's Recording, did a phenomenal YouTube video on the history of techno. He was looking to learn more about it and really dove deep into the history, kind of global history of techno, not just like where it came from in Detroit, but like what happened to it afterwards. Super interesting dive into what genres came out of it and how it broke out that way. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely go watch his video on the history of techno. It's way better than I could ever do. And it was cool for me because I'm old enough to watch this and it felt like a trip down memory lane. So I was very excited for that one. So definitely check that out if you have not. Let's see here. What is the fourth module on top? So 1, 2, 3, 4, the Zadar, which is Chaos Devices. It's basically a quad LFO. So you can do envelopes and LFOs and all kinds of stuff. And it has a bunch of different shapes that you can use. So, oops. So you can like change up the shapes. You see them on the screen. You can see what the shapes of the LFOs are. I actually don't have it patched into anything right now. I have that as a modulation source. If I get an idea while I'm playing and I want to just patch into something, I've got that and I keep cables there with me while I'm playing and I can always patch in. But it was more like a space filler. I'm going to put something else in that space. I think another voice, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So yeah, that was that one. See, where are we? Thank you guys, by the way, for all the comments and questions and stuff. It's always more fun for me when there's like There's interesting back and forth here. Hey, Wabbit, what's going on? Exactly. The mic goes out, improvise, and move on. Wabbit took my course as well, and that's one of the things he's making joke about. One of the things we talk about in the course, which is make a decision and move on. And if something goes wrong, move forward. Like keep going. Don't like freak out and whatever. Just keep moving on. So it's one of the keys to improvisation, whether it's playing techno or your mic. Exactly, it's either one. Yeah. So keep going. Audio good. We hear you. Just got the purple version, I'm assuming, of the skin. Check. Yes, 10. Yes, there's an ES 10. There's an ES 9. There's an ES 8. Let's see. Digitact overlay. Yes, it is cool. No overbridge yet on Digitact 2. I know it's kind of a bummer. I'm excited for when it comes out, but there's an awful lot of things for them to deal with. I wish it would have been ready for the release, but I know they're working on it. I have spoken with people who are in the know, and I know it is a very high priority for them. Yeah, podcast away. Here we go. I feel like I can do like the super podcast voice. Yeah, let's see here. I currently have my Peak on my desk and only have space for one machine. What would be the best bang for space to get the most inspiration to start a track? That is way too vague for me. You need drums, you need synth, you want FM, you want a sampler, do you want, inspiration can come from a lot of places. Inspiration can come from travel and food and relationships and your dog and whatever. So I get inspiration from all of the gear and like the combination of things. So for me, whenever I'm looking at potentially getting something new, I'm always kind of asking myself, what hole do I want to fill? What's missing that I don't have the capability for in this setup that I have? And I think that can help drive those decisions a lot, by, rather than overlapping and doing the same thing twice. There's no magic machine that's like going to all of a sudden be inspirational. I would say the closest thing to that I have is the Oxy One, because it's so easy with this one, like we'll just take, zero this out. So, oh, that's too short. And yeah. So I can just take, actually I'll make it a 16-step one for this type of demonstration. So if I just go in and make like, so I can just make a rhythm, then I can go in here and I can generate random pitch in key with this same rhythm. So then if I hit this, and talk about inspirational, right? Idea generator. One touch gets you something that you can then develop. Right? So for me, this is a great inspiration machine just because it's kind of one touch. And I like the fact also that it is not just a synth that is just one thing that can use that sequencer. I can use that sequencer with any of my synths, my modular. I can send it out to synths here within my studio. I can do all kinds of stuff with that. And so for me, as far as an inspiration machine goes, the Oxy One is it for me. I mean, that's in my setup, in my particular workflow, that is the inspiration machine. Let's see. Jeremy's video is top. Yeah, it is awesome. I mean, I have to go back and watch it again because it was so good. I loved it. What would be better for techno if you had to choose between the new Joe Max Alpha Bass or the Sequential Pro 3? I don't know. I think that, again, it really depends on what you want to do with it. I think that both of those are incredibly powerful synths that can do a lot, that can sound really great. And I think, at least for me personally, the type of techno that I like to make is, it tends to be more simple and focused, and not so much about big, lush sounds that take up a lot of space. I like to have control over a lot of smaller sounds interacting with one another. So for me, for techno, something like that, it's like, okay, cool, you can make great basses with that, but I can make great basses with the bass line. I can make great basses with the Bastille Pizza. I can sample some killer bass sounds into the Digitact and make those. I can make great basses on the Syntact. You know, there's all kinds of things. You can use an Erica Synths baseline standalone if you're not a modular guy. So there's a lot of things that you can do. It depends though. If you're going down that road with the synths that it sounds like, you probably want to do something else with them, I'm assuming. So if that's the case, then yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got to say, I kind of always gravitate towards the sequential stuff just because I think their stuff sounds amazing. But the Jomox is great too. So it really, that's a personal preference thing. It's a taste thing. Especially when you deal with synths. Like there's certain synths that I love the sound of. You know, I'll give you an example. I have the only vintage synth that I have, which is right there, is an SH-101. Because I absolutely love the sound of it. I have the reissue of the Korg MS-20 because I also love the sound of it. So it really comes down to your preference for your sound palette for your style. It's not a matter of like, oh, that's the one that will magically make everything I do sound awesome. It's, to be honest, you don't need any of it. It's all kind of a personal preference thing to what you want to play, what you get inspired by interacting with. That's going to be the best one for you. So I don't think there's one particular one that's going to be the best of the best. Did I try the Squarp Hapex? Yes, I did. When I was looking at in the sequencer world, I tried the Hapex, the T1, obviously the Oxy one. What else? Hapex T1, Oxy 1. I had a Deluge and I was using that for sequencing. Tried a Circlon, crazy expensive. What else? I had a desktop one. There was like the Tori's Squid. So I tried a lot of different sequencers, and for, again, my particular needs and my particular preferences, the Oxy one was hands down the winner. Like it wasn't even close. But again, I'll go back to what I was saying before, is it's really about your workflow and what you need to make the stuff that you make. This may not be the best workflow for you, depending on what you're doing. But for me, it really wasn't even close from a feature standpoint. Let's see. I usually start with drums when building a track and then add chords. Probably the rhythm would be the best choice. Yeah. If you want to do drums, I mean, the analog rhythm is, I've said this a lot before. It's my all-time favorite drum machine. I don't think there's anything that even comes close to it, but that's just me. I'm rocking the Hapex personally. Yeah, or presently. Yes. Hapex is a great one too. It wasn't exactly the right fit for me. But it's a great synthesizer, or great sequencer. Sorry. Hello from the Netherlands. Sweet. I will be in your home area next month for the Amsterdam dance event. Let's see. Been using Beatmaker plugins. Sure. Yeah, those are great. Let's see. I'm jamming on a Pulsar 23. Hooked it up to the Labyrinth. Wondering what your rack I could add to it. 2 or 3 units that would really work and expand. Wow. So you've got in the Pulsar 23 and the Labyrinth, you've got some amazing sound shaping, creating, sound design type tools. In the Labyrinth, you've got a great sequencer, or a pair of them, 2 great sequencers. So that's pretty cool. I would say, again, it kind of depends on what type of music you're looking at making with those. The Pulsar 23, I had one for a while, and I found it was a lot of fun to experiment with, but I did find it pretty unruly. And so it was not anything that I would have ever used to play live, but for doing sound design, it was super fun. And although I did find it a bit distracting, it would take me away from focusing on actually making the music I was trying to make, because I would get so into like just playing around with stuff and touching the capacitors and trying to experiment with this wire and that wire. So yeah, it was. It all depends on how you're using that. Like if you're using that for drums, then maybe you want something that's a little bit, easier to use and more melodic. And if you're using that for kind of sound design and experimentation and more melodic stuff, maybe you want just a more straight up drum machine. So that way you could do that. So again, it kind of depends where you're going to go. I would say if it's a melodic voice, you could go modular, but there's a lot less expensive and easier to operate things that are desktop that don't have to be modular. And then for drums, I would definitely stay away from modular just because, for the cost of a really fantastic drum machine, you're going to get kind of a tiny little janky drum something. It's there because it's specific voices, it's specific things that do really specific tasks. You kind of have to know exactly what you want to use it for before you dive into it. So I think picking and choosing what you would use for it, I think would be or use it for would be probably the first thing I would do. It's hard with modular to kind of get anything out of it with like 2 or 3 units, because then you're going to end up going with something that's kind of an all-in-one unit. And in that case, there's no real reason to be using modular. The idea of modular is that you separate things out and you have a lot of flexibility to mix and match things. Where if you're just going to use a single voice, like for example, this Erica Synths bass line, if I didn't have modular, I wouldn't buy a modular case to buy this module. I would buy their desktop standalone, because there's no reason to go through all of the expense and pain and brain damage of modular if you're just going to go for something that you can already get in a desktop box. Where you get the value out of modular is very hands-on kind of knob per function stuff and the ability to mix and match. So you're not just limited to a single signal path. I wanted to say that clearly. A single signal path. Because with modular, you can mix and match the signal path. But if you only have like, say, 2 modules, there's not a lot you can mix and match between them. They're just kind of, they are what they are. So yeah, let's see here. Where are we at next? Slick Sounds. The Syntrex 2, it's on my list. I have, I'm sure everybody has their like, perfect circuit wish list thing filled out with the synths they want. The Syntrex 2 is on mine. I played it at Superbooth and absolutely loved it. It's just amazing. It's a beautiful synth. I love the interaction with it. I love Erica Synth stuff anyway, like just the way you interact with it. And now the Syntrex, I think is a beautiful version of that. I really, really loved it. Where are we at here? Did I ever try the Torso? Yes, I did try the Torso T1. A couple things with the T1. It was great for generating random stuff, which the Oxy can also do. The thing that was difficult for me is that I needed more options for output, because I'm controlling multiple voices in my case, modulation that's going to the case. I'm controlling multiple different voices on different tracks in hardware synthesizers, and wanting to be able to clock in different ways and connect to different gear. The T1 was limited in not only the number of tracks and the number of outputs of different types of signal paths, but also because of the minimalist design, which I love, by the way. I love the design of it. Because of that minimalist design, it made it so that you couldn't really see things all together. And that kind of made me lean towards the Hapex and the Oxy. And then the Oxy kind of won out on a bunch of different levels. But having this kind of a grid setup where, like if I'm in a multi-sequencer here, each one of these rows is a different voice and I can send them wherever I want. So like voice 1 down here on the bottom is the kick going to this kick unit. Voice 2 is my tom that's going to a channel over here on the Syntac. The next 2 are the closed hat, open hat going to the Archer's rig via CV. Then all these 4 up here on the top are all going to 9 through 12 melodic one-shots in the Digitac. So you can have CV, MIDI, and everything all in one sequencer, and I can see where everything is. So if I'm doing something here, I can say, okay, I know what this track's doing, this track, this track. If I want to make sure they don't interact, I can remove a step if there's already a step there. So it gives you a really good visual overlay. And with the torso, you just have one sequencer at a time that you can see. So you're constantly going back and forth between different sequencers. And so for me, I just like the layout of this for, when you're in a dark room and the lights are flashing and you're all hot and sweaty and you're kind of looking at stuff, it's nice to have a really simple layout that you can always kind of come back to and recognize exactly where everything is. So as much as I love the torso's random generation and I love the minimal layout of it, the Oxy one just offered me a ton more flexibility for my particular workflow. If you're only using it to sequence one instrument or maybe two instruments, it's amazing. Or, maybe you've got drums on one of the sequencers and then you've got something else, a melodic instrument on the other. Like if you ever watch Surgeon, he uses the Torso T1 and he's just sequencing the Pulsar 23, a 1010 black box, which actually I don't even think he's sequencing. I think he's just clocking, and a 1010 lemon drop. And that's his whole live setup. So when you've got a very simple number of pieces of gear, the torso can be a really good option because of what it does. And if your stuff is more melodic, the torso is great at that. What I love again about the Oxy is you can do melodic and drum percussion. So these multis really lend themselves to drums. So you can have like multiple instruments of one kit on a sequencer, but then you can go to another sequencer and have it be melodic. So this is a mono sequencer. So if I put this is all going to play the root note. And if I start moving notes around, that's going to give me, the melody that this makes. So it looks more like a piano roll. So it's very visual to be able to see what you're doing if you're doing it in an improvised way. So again, that's why I went with the Oxy. Let's see here. Greetings from Toronto, Canada. Greetings from Toronto, Canada. I also have the Syntrix 2. It's amazing. Yeah, it is great. Percon's voice module for Eurorec is coming. Oh, that's cool. I hadn't heard that, but that's very cool. It kind of depends on which voice module it is, because obviously some are more useful than others. But to be able to have individual modules from that would be pretty cool, or at least to just have one of them, because I love the way that the Percons works. I love the hands-on. I love the feel of it because of how kind of spread out it is. But unfortunately, because it's so spread out, it's really big. That unit is bigger than my entire modular case. And so it makes it impossible for me to travel with it on a plane because I take everything carry-on. So unfortunately, I can't take it with me when I play live. It's not very heavy, but it's just big. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's see, what do we have? Hey, Ed, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Ed is another alumni of the course, which just another little plug here. If you're interested in doing the course, definitely sign up for it today because it's going to be the last one until winter. We just started today, so you're not behind at all. You can jump right in. Everything's live. And there's a self-paced video course, which gets you about 50 plus videos that you can watch whenever you want. There's twice weekly group Zoom calls where we do question and answer sessions about the section that we're on and about whatever as well. And those are videoed. So if you can't make the course call, you can always grab the video later and watch it so you don't have to worry about scheduling problems. There's also a 1 hour one-on-one with me that we can schedule anytime during the month of the course. And we can do whatever you want. We can go over your gear. I can work with you on a specific thing. I can listen to your live set. We can do it anything you like to do. And then every week you send in a 10-minute recording of your live performance at that time, and I'll give you feedback by email. So we'll talk a little bit about, what you're doing, the performance side, sound selection, mixing, signal processing, all of that stuff. So it's a ton of fun. So if you'd like to sign up for that, and there's a community, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place today. There's a community as well that you get access to with this, and that is ongoing long after the course. So what's cool is each time there's a new cohort of the course, there's new people being added to the community, and everybody's been through the course. So everybody has this kind of foundation of understanding and being able to communicate, and it's not like your typical like Facebook group or Discord or wherever where people just shit post about other people's gear and you suck and why'd you buy that and you're a loser and whatever. This is all people who have invested in improving their skills in hardware performance. And so they're all kind of on the same wavelength about what's important. So it's interesting. So if you want to sign up for that, circlelive.com/courses. There's a link in the description for this video. And when you go to checkout, use the code NOBCON, which is still from this past week. If you use NOBCON as your code when you check out, it saves you 20% off the price of the course. So definitely sign up today if you're interested in that. If you're watching this video after the live stream, go ahead and check anyway and see what's available. If there's a course on the website that's available for signups, that means it's available. I don't put things up if I'm not signing up for those. So definitely go check that out and sign up today if you're interested. I'd love to see you. Still have a few more spaces and it would be great. So let's see. Percons module sounds interesting. Yes. Get you. Thanks for the point of view. It's hard to decide. It is. It really is hard to decide. And ultimately what it comes down to, and this isn't just with sequencers. This is with every piece of gear that there is. What it ultimately comes down to is personal preference. If somebody tells you have to have this, you have to have this, they're full of it, because there's nothing that's magic that is the thing that fixes your lack of practice. So if you get whatever synth, you get whatever sequencer, and you actually practice with it, I saw Cuckoo at Superbooth this year do an entire live set just on a Digitone with 4 tracks, nothing else. So you don't need a whole bunch of gear. You may want a bunch of gear, and if you want a bunch of gear, that's cool. Like I enjoy gear, I have fun, I'm inspired by certain pieces of gear. That's why I have all this gear in my studio, because the playing it, interacting with it inspires me, and that helps me write music. It helps me perform music. So, but it's not because something is magic or that it fixes the things that you don't do well enough. You kind of have to find the things that work for your workflow, and what might work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. So, just as an example, I love the Electron workflow. Works really well for me, but some people don't gel with it. I have a friend of mine, his whole live setup is all Roland machines, which sounds like a crazy amount of brain damage to me, but he loves it, and that's great for him. And it sounds great. So it just matters the most, really, what you get out of it. If you enjoy playing it and the benefit and the advantages you get from it personally, doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, doesn't matter what I think, doesn't matter what some random person on YouTube trying to sell you a piece of gear, doesn't matter. It comes down to you. So try stuff, figure out what you like, what you don't like, really explore gear that you already have and push it to its limit so you can find out what holes you have that you're missing, and then fill space with that. So anyway, let's see here. All of the voices. Oh, cool. Well, yes, it's all digital, but each one of the voices, well, not each one. The voice 1 and voice 2 on the Percons are really similar. Voice 3 is its own thing. Voice 4 is its own thing. So they each do different things. So maybe what you're talking about is they've got a voice that you can switch, between stuff. And so that would be cool. Again, that would be super flexible, because you could have one machine in your case that you could switch from being, a really good kick unit to being a really good, bass or whatever. The Percons, the sound palette in the Percons is pretty broad, so it's very cool. Let's see. Learning the Oxy and just sold my analog rhythm after getting a Digitac 2. Yep. I mean, as you can see, I like the Oxy, like the Digitac 2. So we are on the same page about that stuff. Let's see what else. Oh, it is just one voice at a time. Got it. Course is awesome. Thanks, Ed. Glad you liked it. You can CV over the presets, so it's pretty cool. Oh, that's cool. I like that. That's great. The Percons, like I said, it's awesome. It's just big. So having something like that, do you happen to know how big it's going to be? How many HP that module will be? Because that will be a lot of fun. to potentially have in here, especially for people like me who have percons and love the percons, but can't take it with you on the road. So I did a percon sample pack that's on my website. And just because I love the sounds of it, but I wanted to sample them so I could take them with me. So I sampled a really diverse variety of sounds. In that sample pack, it's kind of cool too, because I didn't do it like kick, bass, snare, whatever. I did it voice 1, voice 2, voice 3, voice 4. So it gives you a real palette of what each one of those voices does. So it's a pretty fun one. Check that out over there. Let's see. Any other questions? Doesn't look like it. So let's go back a little bit to exploring a little bit about what this rig does, and really focusing in again on the Archer's rig. So we've got the turn my toms down just a little bit here. That kick dialed in the way I like it. There we go. Too much depth of the envelope. There we go. So with this, we can go back to our Archer's rig. And again, that's the metallic voice. But if we go to something that's more like the... All right. Sorry, we're going through the effects here, not the voices. So on this bell voice, here. Then we can go in and start messing around with that sequence that we have. I'm actually going to zero that out. That was my kick. again, everything that you're hearing right now is all either the hi-hat voice going through some of the archer's rig, I'll call it, instead of the hi-hat voice. Archer's rig going through the Ghost. I do have a bass line and a kick, and then over here there's a regular open hi-hat. Or let's do a ride, just because I feel like riding. more time, anything that you're hearing that's melodic is coming out of the Archer's rig, besides the bass line. So if I pull out everything except for that, that's what's coming out of the Archer's rig. So anyway, that'll give you guys an idea of what I'm using the Archer's rig for. So let's see. Any questions in the chat? Do. So you get a Syntact or Digitact 2. Do you like synth workflow or sample workflow? Synth workflow, get a Syntact. Sample workflow, get a Digitact 2. How long will it take to get Overbridge and the Digitact 2? I know they're working on it, and I know that it is a high priority for them. It is an incredibly difficult challenge because they're not only writing brand new code for a new chipset that they put into the Digitact 2, but they're also having to make it work now. Stereo samples over Overbridge plus 16 tracks over Overbridge plus all of the integration of the the selectability of the things like control all and the usability of things like being able to take out certain tracks of the compressor. So there's a lot. It's way more complex than the Digitact 1, and they're having to write it from scratch because they have a totally new format, totally new platform with a brand new chipset in the Digitact 2. So not to make excuses for them, I think it should have been ready when it came out, and I was very disappointed and continue to be disappointed that it was not ready. But I do understand that they wanted to get the machine out as a priority and then go for the Overbridge stuff for the Overbridge users, because most people that are using the Digitact 2 are not using Overbridge, so it wasn't as important as getting the machine out itself. Let's see. Both pretty much all in one box. It just depends if you like working sound. Yes. Thank you. Buenas noches. Good evening. Yes, leaning more towards the Syntact because it's more of a synth. Just curious what other people think. I haven't used any Electron gear yet, but also plan on getting an analog rhythm too. So, I mean, if you're just trying to get into the Electron workflow and if you don't have a real synth versus sample preference, I would say the Digitact 2 because it is the flagship device now for Electron. Who knows if they come out with something else that will be more of a flagship at some point, but for right now, it does more than any one of the other boxes. So if you're looking for kind of value for money, and if you're looking for something that can do a ton of everything, the Digitact 2 is great because it does stereo sampling, it can do time stretching, so that's really super convenient. The sample workflow so it's definitely not a synth workflow, but it also doesn't feel like a sample workflow. So you're not just taking a sample and kind of, you got to use it as it is, unless you can, most samplers you can chop it up, and yes, you can kind of do some things with it. This has a lot of flexibility of what you can do with an actual sample in it. So because of that, it feels more like a synth than a sampler normally does, but it's definitely not a synth. So if you're looking for kind of like the all-in-one can do the most things, the Digitact 2 absolutely. 16 tracks, they can all be MIDI. So if you need to control other gear, having that is really handy. And yeah, and it sounds phenomenal. The workflow is great. And if you learn the workflow in this, you can always transfer it to another one of the boxes. So yeah, a lot to love there. Let's see. Which cast module is at the bottom right of your case? This is the Kozalin or Koshalin, depending on if you speak it properly. I know it's supposed to be Koshalin, but I don't know. Kozalin tends to be kind of what people know it as. It is a frequency shifter. So it is on a send from my mixer. So I can send in differing amounts using the send amount. I can send signals combined to it. They go in mono, and then it will take that and split it into a left and right channel. And then you can use the controls here to shift those frequencies in differing amounts. So it gives you a whole new sound. Then I have that going through the Ruccileggio filter and then back into its own channel here. And then that channel is on a send to the Ghost. So I can create basically a voice where there is no voice, because these are also set up on pre-fader, meaning that the fader doesn't have to be up in order for the sound to go out to the aux send. So if I was to go and bring up, let's say that bass that I was just playing before, I can send that to the Kozalin pre-fader. So that is this voice. But you notice the voice isn't up. This is it with the regular voice. So that's the two together. This is just the one that's going through the cause line. So what I can do is I can take this sound and then I can shift the frequency. And if you're listening on headphones, you'll hear how it dramatically changes it differently depending on where you've got it going. You can change out the spread. All right, then it's going through a filter. Which I can add resonance to. So keep in mind right now, there is no voice playing through a channel on its own. This is all just a pre-fader of the bass going to the frequency shifter and then coming out of there. Then if you add in some effects to it, so that's all with no voice playing. Actually, that's just sounds going through the frequency shifter. So again, it's cool because I can shift this. If I've got it playing with the original sound, I can do kind of a wet dry version by this is the dry channel that the sound is actually on. So now that's all just this voice, frequency shifted, filtered through the effects. If I was to pull the frequency shifting and the effects out, it'll show you exactly what the voice is by itself. So here we go. That's what's playing. Here it is through the frequency shifter and then through the effects. And then I can filter the effects. And with resonance on the filter, it picks out different harmonics, so it sounds like other instruments come in. You hear how it kind of sounds like there's a percussive instrument that came in? That's just a harmonic that it's picking up with the resonance of the filter from the bass sound. So if I change the filter on the bass sound, it will change that too. Right? And then if I frequency shift or filter, and again, that really high-pitched sound is just coming from this oscillator being frequency shifted, and it's probably picking up some resonance from the filter, which is cool because then you can kind of make new sounds. And again, because it's techno, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a set structure. So now if I wanted to, I can just bring in my kick and rumble. So again, very much like with the Archer's rig, this gives me a lot of flexibility just with one voice to be able to kind of mess it up and make it into another voice. So using that same idea of that's just one bass voice going through some processing on a send. Now, if I was to bring in the Archer's rig, I can do the same thing with that within here, or I can send it through the same chain if I wanted to, or I can send it directly to the Ghost. So it gives me a lot of options for what to do with a very small amount of effects. So now if I want to, I could actually send this through the frequency shifter as well, and it'll mix those two signals together. So that's that signal from the Archer's rig going through the frequency shifter with the bass signal. So it's combining all of the frequencies of both of those things. Now if I frequency shift, two voices going through a frequency shifter. So the whole design idea behind this rig was to be able to have as much as I can fit as far as options into a really small package. I limit myself to 6U84 with my modular case because that fits into my rolling carry-on bag. So I can take this on, it fits in one side of that bag. So I have the other side for like clothes and stuff. And then these boxes go into my backpack. So that way I can take everything carry-on. I don't have to check anything when I fly to a gig. And, but I still wanted to be able to have the same amount of kind of diversity and flexibility of sound that I was getting from other stuff. So, you know, I have a big studio case behind me, which if you can see right back there, and it's huge and it has tons of stuff in it. It's great for sound design for making new sounds for production or making samples like that I can load into the Digitact, but it's not practical to be able to bring with me. So I wanted to keep the flexibility of a ton of flexible sound design tools, but in a smaller box that I could take with me. So that was the whole point here. And that's kind of why I made the setup the way I did. So let's see here. Use the Digitact 2 like a wavetable. Yes, you can. Yeah, it is fun for noisy techno. Syntact is so much fun, but now that I have the Digitact 2, yeah, you kind of listed off all the cool things. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff and under the hood stuff that made the Digitact 2 pretty awesome. And so if you were going to pick one machine to get, I would say that one, unless you specifically don't want something sample based at all and you want to have exclusively synth, then I would say go with the Syntact. Still good machine. Yes, absolutely. What's up, Digital Analog Daily? Performance mixer is so powerful too. It's overkill for me as I'm not using my rack for performance, but damn, all the send options and possibilities are crazy. Yeah, I love it. I will say though, when I was at not Superbooth, I keep saying Superbooth. When I was at KnobCon last weekend, I tried for the first time the new BoardBrain mixer and their whole kind of ecosystem of mixer attachment modules. It is badass. I was super, super impressed and may end up messing with one if I can make that happen. because yeah, it was pretty amazing. It does some very cool stuff. Now that said, there is a Mark II of the performance mixer that is on pre-sale already. That's coming out soon. I should be getting my beta module from them soon. My demo test module from them soon. Also very, very cool. It does a ton of amazing things that no other mixer has done before. So that's cool as well. So between those two, like the performance mixer, the Mark One and the Mark II, and then the new board brain, they are amazing. Their stuff is super solid. Both companies really great, nice people. So yeah, I would definitely give those a look. Let's see, frequency shifter and effects on that bass line is dope. Creates a whole sphere. It does. And that was kind of the idea because what I was doing before, like for example, atmospheres, I was making them prior to playing and I would play them as a time stretch sample. And it's not super practical because you can't always make them line up and in key and all of that stuff. So being able to make those kind of things and modulate a sound that you already are using into a different sound is really handy because then when you change up something, you don't have to worry about them being in key or following along because they're made from that sound. So obviously they'll go together. So it's yeah, it makes it a lot of fun. Let's see here. So my performance mixer, because the micro control density drove me mad. Yeah, it is super tight. And I did love that about the board brain. The size of the knobs and the sliders are longer, all of that stuff. Now, what you sacrifice in putting in longer sliders and bigger knobs is the inputs are no longer along the top, they're on the side. So it makes it much wider. So you lose modules and you have to bring stuff down into that. I like to keep things as much as I can across the middle. So it keeps things out of the path of what I'm using and where I need control in the hands. So there are sacrifices to it, but having those nice long sliders and larger knobs and stuff is amazing. Yeah, it's very cool. So many cables makes my OCD go bonkers. Yeah, and it shouldn't be that bad because I'm using black. What gets me, and it's the reason why I use black cables, is when you have colored cables, for me, that drives me crazy. For one thing, is because the colors are all over the place. But the other thing too is that in a dark club, I need to be able to see these controls. And as often happens, the cables are going over the top of the controls. I've found that if I use black, I can see through things better, see through to what the label is on something or where a knob is. Where if it's a whole bunch of colors, you can't really see as well through it. And so that's why I try to keep it all one color. And I like it black. Obviously, I like black aesthetic as well, but there really is a practical reason for it. I like to be able to see things better in a dark room, and the cables can really distract from that in modular if they're a bunch of different colors. So yeah. What happened with the quadranted swarm? It is right over there on the shelf. I love it. It's amazing, but it takes up too much space for one voice. So I'm not using it in my live rig, but I do still use it in studio. Boardbrain makes great stuff. Their output modules have been good to me. Yeah, the output stuff is cool. They have a couple new ones. They have one that has stereo pairs of 1/4-inch outputs, which is really cool. They have another one that is inputs and outputs of Eurorack style, and those can be kind of standalone without the mixer. And then what's the other one? Yeah, they have one that's an ADAT converter, which is really cool as well. I really loved what I saw, and speaking with Adam from Boardbrain, he was very nice, super into what he's doing, does an amazing job, lots of attention to detail, makes fantastic gear. So I really loved it. Hopefully, I'll have a chance to use some of it hands on and test it out because it was really, really, really good. I loved what I saw. Let's see, Boardbrain mixer is 100% huge, but awesome. Yeah, it's huge. Again, it's not a lot bigger than this one. It's a few HP bigger than this one, and it's going to be smaller than the Mark II of the WMD. So it just kind of comes down to if you want a lot of functionality in a small space, you're probably going to stick with a Mark I performance mixer from WMD. It fits the most in the amount of space of any mixer I've seen. But then you do have to deal with the small knobs, but it's the trade-off. There's no way to do it another way. If you're going to go a little bit bigger, I think the competition is going to be a bit harder between the Performance Mixer Mark II and the Board Brain. The what's it called? The Zclon? No, Exelon. Sorry, the Exelon. So between those two, it's going to be close. They do have some things that they do differently. So definitely hit me up if you're trying to decide between those two, because I can help kind of point you in the right direction between the Mark II performance mixer and the Exelon, because they do a lot of things similarly, but they also have quite a few things that they do differently as well. So important to make sure it's going to do right for your workflow. Again, common theme here today, right? Let's see what else. Yeah, especially with the expanders. The more expanders you put, the more space you have to take. The cool thing though, I love the way they built it as expander modules, because that way you can put them anywhere in your case for the most part. I think the cables are like 16 inches, so you can move them around. They don't have to be all in one row. So it's nice. Like if you want to have your output module like up and out of the way, you can have your output module, or those 1/4 inch outs, you can have it out there where you're not going to mess with it. And it doesn't have to take up all the space in one row. So definitely cool. The big LE performance mixer, so I'm stuck. Okay. Use it till it breaks. Yeah, or you can always sell it. I mean, that's the beautiful thing with this kind of stuff, is that you can always sell stuff. There's always somebody that's looking for the thing you're looking to get rid of, because again, there's not one magic thing. It's whatever works good for you. So find somebody who's looking for that and do that. After later doing a mixer line. Yeah, I saw that one as well. Didn't jump out at me the same way the Board Brain one did, but yeah, good as well. The Bafako one is very cool. The 1010 Blue Box, the modular version of it that they came out with last year, is also really good. The Noise Engineering one, the Zermixa, I think it's called. That one's also very cool. There's a lot of good mixers out there. The Bartender, there's just a ton. But again, when it comes down to, it's just like saying there's a lot of good oscillators. Yes, there are. Now it's just a matter of which one works best for you. You may hate the sound of the pizza, and I love it. So it may not work for you, it may work for me. As far as mixers go, though, I would say before you get something, be really careful to look at the details of what they do, because there's a lot of stuff that you may think it would do automatically that it doesn't. And there's a lot of stuff that's not evident, that you don't really see. Like, for example, if you're producing a lot and you want to produce using multi-tracked versions of a live performance from a case, if you look at, for example, the Performance Mixer Mark II, there's going to be a little 4 HP module that goes next to it that can be outputs for every channel that are pre-fader. So you can record your pre-fader outputs multi-tracked into an audio interface and into your software. The other thing it has is USB-C MIDI out, so you can record your fader movements via MIDI into your DAW to go along with your pre-fader audio. So you can record all the bits and parts of your performance live while you do it, but have them all in pieces so that if you need to go back in and fix or change or modify, you don't have to do audio editing. You can actually go in and edit the MIDI of the fader movements, and it will be a lot cleaner and a lot easier to do. So there's a lot that that mixer will be able to do. The other cool thing with the Performance Mixer Mark II is, like the Bartender and also like the Board Brain and some of the others, it has extra modules that you can add on to add extra channels. The difference with the Performance Mixer, the WMD one, is that those little 4-channel add-ons are all going to be freestanding. So if you, let's say you have the main 8-channel plus 2 of the 4 channels in a big, huge studio mixer, and then you needed something for a gig and you wanted to just take 4 channels, you can just take only one of the expanders without the main module and put it into its own case. And that way you save yourself a lot of space. The other ones all require the main module for the expanders to work. So you have at least 6 channels, and in most cases 8, that you have to use and take up that space, where the WMD will allow you to just use the 4-channel, and then you can combine it together into 12, 16, like multiple channels. You can jump them together in the back. So it'll be, that's a very unique feature along with the MIDI of the performance mixer. So yeah, it's interesting. Let's see here. Thanks for the knowledge. You're welcome. Glad you're enjoying it. Good to have you here. Let's see. Frap. Yes, they make great stuff as well. It is fidgety. I agree with you. Stereo-friendly Euro mixers are rare. Yeah, I mean, the Performance Mixer Mark II, all 8 channels are stereo. The Board Brain, all 6 channels are stereo, plus the 2 stereo returns, so technically 8 channels of stereo. In the Performance Mixer Mark I that I have here, you have 6 mono and 2 stereo. But yeah, to get all of them stereo, that'll be more and more all of them. So things are moving in that direction for sure. Let's see here. Modular modules. Yes, it is a the Board Brain ecosystem is a modular system. So something that's designed to mix and match to make your thing the way you want it. I do love, so with the WMD performance mixer, I love that the individual 4-channel extra units are freestanding. I love in the Board Brain stuff that they're input output modules, DB25, all of those are freestanding without the mixer as well. So like their IO module that's like, I can't remember if it's 12 in, 12 out. I'd have to look it up, but that's a passive thing. So it's not even powered. So you can connect that and just have inputs and outputs that you can then connect with jumpers on the back to output modules, to their DB25 for multi-tracking. So there's a ton of things that you can do, and it makes their system very modular, even though it's for modular synthesizers, if that makes sense. Is that not redundant? Modular, but yes, it is. I agree. Yes, the Frappa stuff is also super interdependent. Most of the stuff is, and that's why what WMD is doing with theirs is it's unique. There's not a lot of people doing it, so I would say it is very cool. But the Board Brain one, I have to say, did really impress me at NobCon. So if you're thinking about it, definitely give that one a look. It's out now, and the WD Performance Mixer Mark II is not. That one is on pre-sale, but it's not quite out yet. So if you need something immediately, that's not an option for you. But the Mark I still is, and it's amazing. I mean, most of the people that I know that are playing live modular are using this one. So it's definitely kind of a standard that people are using. So can't go wrong with it. It's super functional and tight, fits in small space, which is a relatively small space for a mixer. Cool. Well, I think we're going to call it there. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. It's great, as always, to have you on the live streams. And definitely sign up for the course if you're interested. Use the NobCon code at checkout, NobCon, KNOBCON. Use that at checkout. And that'll save you 20% off the price of the course. This is the last course for a couple months. There won't be another one until winter. So definitely sign up for it now if you're on the fence. And the course is already up and running. You've only missed one of the group meetings, so there's many, many more to go. And I'll make that one up to you if you jump in late. There's no problem. So glad to have you guys on board. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. And hope to see you the next time.